not great.
We're live. We are right now live on Facebook.
Which isn't very good because my jacket.
What's the matter with your jacket?
Look here.
You look good to me. I'm sitting here with Martin Gerstenfeld. Manfred Gerstenfeld, forgive me. Someone who we all can learn so much from. Manfred is an expert on anti-Semitism, taught for many years, an author, and really one...
I didn't teach for many years. I never taught.
Oh.
Other than 60 years ago, Hebrew school.
He could still teach all of us about anti-Semitism historically and its application today.
That is not true.
Am I saying anything that's true, Manfred?
No, half. You're always saying half-truths. You could straight go to Trump.
I can say that. So we're here talking about anti.
I would say,
yes.
Call me Dr. Manfred Gerstenfeld.
Dr. Gerstenfeld.
In this context, even though it's absurd, because my PhD is not in this field, so like you should theoretically only use your PhD in the field where you got it,
right.
And not in things. But for this purpose, it may be the right thing to do. Look, I'm not contrary to Wistrich. Look. You have to understand, Wistrich got into this because he was genuinely interested in it.
Tell everyone who's watching who is Wistrich. We are talking about anti-Semitism and Wistrich. What was his first name?
Professor Robert Wistrich was the leading scholar, academic scholar of anti-Semitism through the ages.
Okay.
He suddenly passed away after the movie was done.
Right. We're here talking about the movie of Monique Schwartz, Beyond Paranoia, how anti-Israelism is the new anti-Semitism, and Manfred plays a big role in the movie.
Basically, there are three types of anti-Semitism. The first one is religious anti-Semitism, initially Christian, followed by Muslim anti-Semitism. More or less both of them, but in particular Christian anti-Semitism, create the basis of the concepts of anti-Semitism, the core motifs, which is the Jews are absolute evil. Christianity occupies itself with Judaism as a religion.
Right.
And it sees in the Jews the people who have killed allegedly the Lord, their Lord, Son Jesus, the Son of the Lord.
Right.
This is what we in today's world would know post-truths, fake news, alternative news.
Very good.
It's all.
It's true. That's a good point.
It's Christianity invents a number of ideas which to some extent are criminal. The first of all is that the Jews killed Jesus, which they couldn't do because the Romans ruled, and only the Romans could kill. Secondly, the number of Jews which at all could have been present at the crucifixion was tiny. So you do what racists always do on the basis of the acts of a few people. You accuse a whole ethnic, religious or other group, which is a criminal thought, which is really where the anti-racists fight against. Thirdly, they create a scapegoat. The Jew becomes a scapegoat for the Roman murder. It isn't convenient for them to accuse the rulers, so they accuse another weaker group. The fourth idea is the concept that people can be responsible for acts their ancestors did, leave alone that their ancestors didn't do these acts. If that were the case, there are tens of millions of Germans today who are guilty for acts done in far less generations before them
Right.
than the Jews of today.
That's a very interesting point. I just want to say it again
Yeah.
because that's the first time I ever heard that concept. That the Christian anti-Semitism, basically based on the made-up story that the Jews murdered Jesus and therefore they still hate us, and today those who are anti-Semitic, is then similar to the story of saying blaming all Germans today for everything their grandparents did, and we should hate them and go after and want to do bad things to them. Wow, that's an interesting point.
So Christianity lays the basis, and it invents. The basic of it is Jews are responsible for all evil. Jews are Satan.
Right.
Jews embody the evil.
Right.
If you do that, of course, that leads to pogroms, murders, expulsions, dispossessions. You have created the ideological basis for evil.
Right.
Not the Jews are evil, but those who carry out the pogroms, who promote the hatred, and so on. You also start laying the basis for what later becomes the Holocaust. Because you have created this image on which the second generation, the ethnic nationalist anti-Semite of the 19th century, builds further.
Right.
He takes the same concept that the Jew is absolute evil, but of course in a society which is far more secular,
Right.
absolute evil, no God, you can't kill his son.
Right.
But you are genetically inferior, therefore you have to be exterminated. The third generation is anti-Israelism. Now it's less clearer because we live in a time of what is nominally called postmodernity.
Postmodernism.
In fact, it is a fragmentation of everything. So the motifs aren't, the basic motif is still there. The state of Israel is born in sin, which is absolute evil, contrary to all the other states of which Professor Avineri once has brightly said they had an immaculate birth.
All other nations had immaculate births, but Israel was born in sin.
Yeah.
That's a funny concept.
He's a funny person, very intelligent person. Now, absolute evil fragments, and the Christians developed a number of basic fragments. One of these fragments was Jews need blood.
Right.
This is need blood, for instance, for making matzot.
Right.
You have interviewed Professor Israeli, has written a book on how the Arabs now have all kinds of new things, and also Westerners who will tell you that who have invented new blood libels, such as that Israel kills Palestinians to reuse their organs, which is exactly the same story, but not for matzahs, but for recycling of organs.
Right, the recycling of organs.
Yeah.
Right.
Then the Jews strive for power. I must say, I have quite a few non-Jewish friends, and I'm surprised that occasionally one or the other is interested in power. And the same is true for the third major thing, which is that Jews strive for money. And I don't know, if you look into the United States with the billionaires...
Capitalism has nothing to do with the pursuit of money.
There is no... So all these, but today all these motifs fragment into new versions.
Right.
So you cannot fight it by explaining. I say that often. If I had to give a lecture 500 years ago, let's imagine, I could handle the whole thing in 2, 3, 5 minutes at most, and everybody would understand it. Today, if I need an hour, in
to go
order
through
to
it.
go through it because it is so incredibly
Wow.
fragmented.
Well, all right, I want to catch everyone up. There have been new people who've joined. I'm sitting here with Dr. Gerstenfeld, expert on anti-Semitism. He just walked through the three stages of the development of anti-Semitism to today. Started with Christian anti-Semitism that was religiously based. It then it then developed into secular anti-Semitism based on the Christian motifs, and that's the Holocaust. That was a more secular culture, but its form of anti-Semitism, and it's now developed to today, which is the anti-Israelism, which is what brings us to be sitting and talking to one another, because we're talking about Monique Schwartz's movie Beyond Paranoia, which really goes into how anti-Israelism is today's anti-Semitism. And I know you've written a lot about the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement and its aspect of part and parcel of being anti-Semitic.
Yeah, but we have to go one step behind and say the following. Look, if I want to fight anti-Semitism, it's very convenient for me if I have a definition. That definition was created, or at least it was accepted in last year by what is called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is an organization for Holocaust education, but which has 31 nations as members. These are all democratic countries. To give you an idea who is there, the United States is there, Canada is there, Argentina is there, but also about 24 or 25 of the 28 member states of the European Union.
Right.
And that means everybody, because of course the ones who are not there are Cyprus and Malta and Bulgaria.
So the 31 countries associated with the Western free world have signed on to this.
They haven't signed on.
No, they've accepted.
They have voted that on the IHRA definition without that committing themselves. Since then, one major step has happened, that the first country which has really accepted it for its internal operations, the Great Britain, has taken on this definition. The other countries have agreed to it, so that gives them a certain moral responsibility, but not like Britain, which says, okay, our police is going to work according to this, our universities are going to work according to this, and so on, our authority is going to work according to this. And this, of course, you now can put this definition next to the acts
that are being done.
For instance, the Simon Wiesenthal Center publishes every year the 10 major anti-Semitic incidents, and it can now say the United Nations applies double standards to Israel. The United Nations is a creator of anti-Semitic incidents. It has said the European Union is a creator of anti-Semitic incidents. The Swedish Foreign Minister, Margot Wallström, has made anti-Semitic remarks, because you have now a definition which is no longer a judgment of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. It is an objective definition which you have to lay next to documents, to the acts of individuals, to BDS. And BDS is anti-Semitic because, in most cases, because it applies double standards against Israel. It will not apply the same standards against other countries. And that is what makes BDS anti-Semitic, and the professors who support it, academics who support it, are at least part-time anti-Semites.
So I wanna follow up with one question and then talk about the movie. People want to know, and I want to know, is there a growth in anti-Semitism today? You're a little bit older than me. You've seen a little bit more of what's gone on over the past few decades. Is there a growth in anti-Semitism taking place before our eyes? And what does this have to do with anti-Israelism or classic anti-Semitism?
Look, you cannot really measure anti-Semitism, which, for instance, is the enormous failure of the European Union. They fight anti-Semitism in all these decades that they exist. They haven't developed standard for reporting anti-Semitic incidents,
Right.
which is adapted by their member countries.
Right.
Part of their member countries even don't keep track of it. So it is very difficult, but there is one thing we know. We know that about 150 million out of the 400 million adult citizens of the European Union think that Israel is exterminating or conducting a war of extermination against
Genocide,
the
right.
Palestinians.
Right.
This, of course, is once
Fake
again
news.
the same idea of the evil
Jew.
the Jew. What is evil in our days? To be, it was in the days of Christianity to have killed the Son of the Lord, in the days of Nazism to be inferior, in the days of today to be like a Nazi. So there is deep anti-Semitism in the European Union.
Right.
In fact, and I have said that, and surprisingly, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church, Bishop Welby, says that anti-Semitism is not only part of European history, it's part of European culture. And
I was wondering if you were going to go culture. I was thinking DNA, so part of our European culture.
Culture.
Right.
No, you cannot say that. I mean, then you get into discussions on a highly modern profession, epigenetics. That is, I never go into that, and it is meaningless. It isn't scientifically proven.
Right.
You
No,
are
no, no.
not
The way you're
born-
saying it is
you're
right.
not born an anti-Semite, but it's definitely part of European culture.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that every European is an anti-Semite. I
Right.
often say, look, if you ask classic ballet, to which culture it belongs, everybody will say that's European culture. Well, I have a lot of acquaintances who you would have to pay a lot of money in order to sit out the ballet.
Right.
A ballet.
Right.
So, I mean, we have to understand that we should not abuse our terminology.
Right.
So, it is definitely part of European culture, and you see it left, right, and center. Is it growing? There is no doubt that after the year 2000, there has been an enormous explosion of anti-Semitism, almost everywhere, whereas the worst people, of course, come out of the world of Islam. And the Arabs, I don't want to accuse all of them, because then you are again falling into the stereotype trick.
Right.
But there is no doubt that Europe, by non-selectively importing massively people from countries where most people are anti-Semites, such as Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Turkey,
Syria.
Syria, we cannot even get statistics, but it is the same. You bring in people without any selection, and as a result of that, you have become an anti-Semitism importer. As I live in a free country, Israel, I can say something which I couldn't say in Europe. There is no doubt that the massive, non-selective immigration of people from Arab countries and Muslim countries is the worst thing which has happened to European Judaism since the Holocaust.
Right. And wait, so let me take that. What about the United States of America?
Look, the United States of America is a different reality because it is a multicultural society in which the Jews are a current or an ethnicity, if you wish to, and even though probably anti-Semitic incidents are bigger than incidents against other groups, it is, you cannot compare it to Europe. Same is true for Canada, for instance, or for Australia. We have to, and please also realize that I'm an expert on Western Europe.
Okay.
I have lived there. I know their languages, the main languages of Western Europe. I have worked in most Western European countries of significance. So I know these countries.
But the question would be, if the United States of America would go through the same process of immigration of Arabs from Arab Muslim countries, of the numbers and percentages that came into Europe, would we be seeing the same type of issues in affecting society in the United States of America?
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. We already see them. There is anti-Semitic hatred being preached by certain Muslim preachers. As in the US, we don't know how many Muslims there are, 1%, 2% at most. It doesn't reach the enormous figures of France.
Right.
It's 10% Muslims, or let's say of Great Britain with 5%, or the Netherlands with 6%, Belgium in these orders. There is no doubt that Muslims, and I'm not saying all Muslims,
but
I'm saying out of the Muslim community, two things have happened. The most extreme hatred in Europe comes out of Muslim communities, out of their parts. The most extreme incidents are committed by Muslims. All murders in Europe of Jews, or for religious reasons, or for ideological reasons, have been committed by Muslims. That is true for the murders of in France, Selam, Halimi, the murders by Mera in Toulouse, the Hippo Kasher murders. It's true for the murders in Brussels. It's true for the murder in Copenhagen. Always Muslims. We have had in the Netherlands, for instance, the planning of throwing a bomb on a synagogue. Also there, Muslims. And that goes, and Muslims they attack Kristallnacht, they attack Holocaust, I mean verbally. They try to undermine Judaism massively. And besides that, if you have an Islamization, and there is an Islamization going on, which again is a word which is not properly defined. Islamization doesn't mean that tomorrow populations are going to be Muslims. It means that there are phenomena in society which are very important, which are a result of the presence of large numbers of Muslims. Now, some of these phenomena of Islamization are totally neutral phenomena. I have not the slightest objection that people who want to pray according to Islam put up a mosque. Many Europeans get very nervous about a woman with a burkini going on a beach. I don't know why a woman who wears a burkini, who doesn't hinder anybody, is worse than a woman who is half naked on the beach. These are, of course, in the chaotic, fragmented world, you get these idiotic things. Once the mosque brings a hate imam, and quite a few do, that is, of course, a different story. So you have neutral Islamization, you have negative Islamization. And you have certain cultural things of new types of crimes which weren't common, such as honor killings. Now, they are not massive, but still, these are new crimes brought
into the Western world.
Not even by religious Muslims necessarily, by people who are culturally Muslims. And that brings a further negative phenomenon with it. That is the reaction. Without Muslims, no anti-Islamic parties. And these anti-Islamic parties are also often a hindrance for Jews. And if because we're grouped together, nobody would have attacked kosher slaughter, because, I mean, in the Netherlands, where it is most absurd, there was a huge move against Muslim slaughter. And in order to show that they were not only Muslims, they were also against kosher slaughter. Now, in the Netherlands, where I by chance know the figures, 100 million animals are slaughtered. Of these, 3,000 are cows by Jews.
Right.
I mean, nobody would have made a fool of himself by saying, proposing a law against that, because then they would say, well, among these 100 million animals you slaughter, at least 1 million animals are slaughtered in a way which who would wish that they were kosher slaughtered.
Right.
So, but of course, once you have 1 million animals slaughtered according to, or 2 million according to halal, then you take the Jews in stride. The same is with the attacks on circumcision. So, also the anti-Islamists, or some of them, which are a result of the Islam, have become a problem for the Jews.
Right.
On top of that, you have the fact that in order to get, if you have 10% Muslim voters, you try to get
their vote.
You try to get their vote, and nothing is cheaper than being anti-Israeli. You give them nothing, which implies for you any real commitment.
Right.
And you see that, for instance, in the French elections, where there will be soon presidential elections, the Socialist Party and socialists have become the major enemies of Israel today, far more than the populists in many countries. And I've published on that, countries such as Sweden, where, I have once published an article and said that every European country needed a national psychologist, except for Sweden, we needed a national psychiatrist. Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Britain, the Netherlands, France, Switzerland. You see in all these countries, you see the evil attacks on Israel by leading socialists.
Right.
And we do not realize in Israel that the socialists are often more enemies of ours than the populists.
Okay, so now I want to take you, we're getting some great comments here. First of all, Mark Halawa says, you're the man, Manfred. And Ashley Perry said he sends regards. He says, say hi to Manfred.
How do you see that? Now?
I say it right here. Yes, right now, they're watching. And we have since you just brought up the socialists and before the Islamists, or Islam, we have a question here from Yuval Gat. He's asking, can you elaborate on the red-green alignment against Israel and Jews, the socialists' Islamic alignment against Jews? What do you have to say about that?
Look, again, it is not everywhere, because I will not say, for instance, in Germany, one of the Green parliamentarians, Volker Beck, is the strongest fighter against anti-Semitism. I also have nothing against the German Socialist Party, and very little, relatively, against the Austrian Socialist Party. And nowadays, also, our problems in Italy are certainly not with the socialists, but with this crazy populist five-star movement.
Meaning in every country it's different. In some places on the right, some places on the right. This goes to your fragmentation arguments.
It is
that it's not so simple. It's not so
simple.
So
because it is not so simple, and if you have to look, I have a fairly good education. It took me 15 years to write my book. It's a long time, because it is difficult and you have to study it from scratch. And the Israeli government would do extremely well to sponsor contemporary anti-Semitism studies.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to jump to the final question. Again, we're here. Manfred is a major person in the field of anti-Semitism in general, but he takes part in this new film by Monique Schwartz, Beyond Paranoia. Why is it important for people to see this film, Beyond Paranoia, and bring it to their communities for people to see?
I think Monique Schwartz has done a magnificent job I have also written a review of it, and if you look it up, if you Google it up, Manfred Gerstenfeld, Monique Schwartz, you see that review where I can explain in more detail than I can here what she has done, because it is so incredibly difficult. It's so fragmented. You have here a person who has managed to put together a picture in slightly over an hour of what this is, and it is so incredibly difficult to explain it, because you, in the newspapers and in the TV, right, you only see a fragment, and you still have this is the last occasion you have to benefit from the original thoughts of the late Professor Robert Wistrich.
Right. And who's in the movie as well.
You will see there also a quite remarkable contribution from Giovanni Quer, who is, in my eyes, a great expert on Christian anti-Semitism, which hasn't disappeared. We find Christian anti-Semitism in strange places, because you find it in the Catholics, among the small right-wing fundamentalists, and in Protestantism you find it among the liberals, right, exactly on the opposite side, the American Presbyterians, the Methodists, the Church of Christ. So you cannot generalize. Certainly, while the official Lutheran Church in Norway and or even in Sweden is quite anti-Israeli, the evangelical Norway by evangelicals. So it has become very, very fragmented. I usually don't take 50 years in the study of a problem.
So again, Manfred here is talking how the movie Beyond Paranoia by Monique Schwartz, it is so critical to see, because this whole issue of anti-Israelism today being the new anti-Semitism, it's a fragmented world we're living in, and she does a wonderful job in this movie to define it for all of us and bring it out to the fore for all of us to know, to understand what's going on in today's world, and not to be in denial about it. So, Manfred, thank you so much for your time and your insight.
It was a pleasure.
All right, and
on an unpleasant issue.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, and everyone, I will be putting up the link to be able to see the trailer to Beyond Paranoia and the email address to contact Monique, so you can bring it to your communities, your organizations. Very, very critical today. People understand what's going on, and as Manfred is saying, it's not so simple. It's fragmented, but it's an issue that's there, and unfortunately, it's a big issue. Take care, everyone. Shalom from Jerusalem.